Carol stood in the kitchen doorway, drying her hands on a towel. Joe sat on the edge of the couch, eyes fixed on the television, barely blinking. He hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't yelled, cheated, or left. But she couldn't ignore the silence between them anymore, so she finally said it, quietly. "I miss us." He didn't turn around, didn't respond, just sat there, still, not cold, not cruel, just absent. And that's what hurt the most. This is the reality many women face after 60. The man they've shared a life with, a home, children, holidays, hardships, is still physically there, but emotionally, he's somewhere else. The affection is gone, the spontaneous touches, the warm looks, the long talks in bed. What remains is routine, practicality, distance. But here's the truth no one tells you. Most men don't pull away because they've stopped loving you. They pull away because they don't know how to stay connected anymore. After 60, men face changes they rarely speak about. A drop in testosterone and energy, silent fear of aging and losing relevance, physical changes that make them feel less like a man. A deep, quiet shame they can't articulate, so they withdraw, not because they want to leave, but because they no longer recognize themselves. And when a man doesn't feel like a man, he stops showing up as a partner. This video isn't about blame, it's about understanding, and it's about hope. Because if you've ever looked across the room and thought, where did he go? If you've whispered in your heart, I miss us, there is a path back. In this video, we'll explore why men withdraw emotionally after 60, the silent struggles most women never see, how to open the door again without pushing, 2 powerful stories of reconnection, what one woman did differently, and how it saved her relationship. This isn't about fixing your partner, it's about seeing what's hidden and inviting it back to life. Because love doesn't vanish with time, it vanishes with silence. And sometimes, all it takes is one gentle voice saying, I miss us, and meaning it. Carol and Joe had been together for over 40 years. They raised 2 children, shared long road trips, held hands at family weddings. Joe was never the overly romantic type, but he was present. He made her tea on cold mornings. He'd touch her back as he passed her in the hallway. At night, they'd talk under the covers until sleep gently arrived. But something had changed. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, like fog settling in. Joe stopped reaching for her hand. He watched more TV, fell asleep in his chair, and when she tried to talk about deeper things, he'd nod but not really respond. At first, Carol thought, maybe he's just tired. Then, maybe I'm overthinking. But deep down, she knew something had shifted. She began to feel alone, even in his presence. And one night, after brushing her teeth and slipping under the covers without so much as a glance from him, the words escaped her lips. I miss us. Joe looked at her, then away. No fight, no denial, just silence. That silence stayed with Carol the next morning, and the one after that, until a conversation with her friend Linda opened something up. Linda, who had also been married for decades, said something simple. Men don't always leave physically, but sometimes they disappear emotionally, and they don't know how to come back unless we help them find the way. Those words rang in Carol's head. So instead of pressing Joe for answers, she tried something else. She went back to a photo album from their early years, found a picture of them at the lake, smiling, young, silly. She left it on his side of the bed with no note. That evening, Joe picked it up and stared at it longer than she expected. He didn't say much. But that night, for the first time in months, he reached for her hand under the sheets. It wasn't a full return, but it was a beginning. Carol didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She made space for memory, for emotion, for Joe to come back at his own pace. Because sometimes what pulls men away isn't a problem to solve. It's a part of themselves they've lost touch with. And the only way back is through gentle recognition, not confrontation, not pressure, just the quiet invitation. I still see you, even if you can't see yourself right now. To the outside world, Joe looked like any other retired man. He did small house projects, took afternoon walks, paid the bills. He even smiled at neighbors and laughed at old sitcoms. But inside, he felt slower, less certain, less useful, and he didn't know how to talk about it. This is the silent reality for many men after 60. They don't explode. They slowly shrink inward, emotionally, intimately, spiritually. It's not because they've stopped loving. It's because they're facing changes no one taught them how to navigate. Let's break it down. 1. Physical changes undermine confidence. After 60, a man's body changes in ways that quietly erode his sense of self. Lower testosterone means less drive, less spontaneous desire, and more fatigue. Circulation issues can affect physical performance and sensitivity. Weight gain or muscle loss alters how he sees himself in the mirror. Even a man who once felt strong and sure may now hesitate to initiate affection because he's not sure if he can follow through. So instead of risking failure, he pulls away. 2. Emotional repression runs deep. Many men grew up with one rule: don't show weakness. And now, in the face of aging, fear, and uncertainty, that programming leaves them unequipped to process. Grief over their changing body, anxiety about mortality, shame about needing help or not feeling like a man. Rather than open up, they go silent, not because they don't care, but because they were never taught how to put these feelings into words. 3. Loss of identity and purpose. Retirement, adult children, reduced roles in society, these transitions often hit men hard. A man who once led teams or provided for a family now struggles to define his value. Without purpose, intimacy can feel meaningless, and without feeling desired or powerful, he may detach rather than try. One man described it this way: "I didn't stop loving my wife. I just stopped feeling like someone she could admire." 4. Fear of rejection or inadequacy. If a man feels he can't perform physically or emotionally, he might avoid intimacy entirely, not because he doesn't want connection, but because he fears failing at it. Better to avoid than disappoint. Better to stay quiet than say, "I don't know what's wrong." This is the logic that pushes men away after 60. It's not intentional abandonment, it's silent self-protection. But here's the hope. Most men don't want to stay in that emotional exile. They're waiting for the right signal, the right safety, the right invitation to come back. And they will, if the path is open. How women can gently bring their partner back without pressure or blame. You can't force someone to open up, but you can create the conditions where opening up feels safe. And that's exactly what many women over 60 are learning to do, not by fixing their partner, but by changing the atmosphere around the relationship. Because the truth is, most men don't need a lecture, they need a lifeline. Here's how you can offer one without pressure, guilt, or blame. First, shift from "why aren't you" to "I miss." Instead of "why don't you talk to me anymore?" "You never touch me like you used to." Try, "I miss when we used to laugh before bed. I miss the way we used to sit close on the couch." This softens the message. It's not an attack, it's a longing. It doesn't accuse, it invites. 2. Create moments, not conversations. Men may not open up under pressure, but they often respond to presence. Try this. Sit beside him without saying anything. Hand him a photo from earlier days. Leave a note with a memory you cherish. Play a song from your time while making dinner. These small gestures say, "I remember us. I still see us. I want us." And they bypass the defense wall that words sometimes build. 3. Use touch without expectation. A light hand on the shoulder, a touch on the arm as you pass, holding his hand during a walk. These moments restore connection without demand. They say, "I'm here, I'm still open," without requiring a grand response. And for a man who feels unsure of his masculinity, these gestures can be deeply affirming. 4. Leave space for silence, but but stay close. Sometimes the greatest gift is sitting beside someone in silence, not filling the air with questions, not demanding emotion, just being there. This communicates acceptance. It allows him to breathe again, to step out of performance and into presence. Carol did this for Joe. When she stopped trying to solve him and simply welcomed him back, he began to reappear, slowly, steadily, sincerely. 5. Celebrate small returns. If he touches your hand, responds to a memory, or opens up even a little, don't rush to make it more. Just hold it. Smile. Let it grow on its own. Because rebuilding connection after distance isn't about one big moment. It's about many small ones, stacked quietly, lovingly, patiently. This isn't easy. It takes strength to stay soft when you're hurting. But many women have rediscovered deep intimacy in their relationships, not through confrontation, but through gentle re-invitation. Because the moment you say, "I miss us," with tenderness instead of tension, you remind him that coming back is still possible. Margaret and Henry had been married for 45 years. They had built a quiet life, dinners at home, Sunday walks, crossword puzzles on the porch. But for the last 2 years, something in their marriage had quietly shifted. Henry had withdrawn. He spoke less, touched less. He went to bed earlier, rose later, and seemed content to live in his own small, private world. Margaret thought it was her at first. Had she changed? Was she no longer attractive to him? Was he angry about something he didn't want to say? The truth came out during a conversation with Henry's doctor, where Margaret sat quietly in the corner. The doctor asked how Henry was feeling about aging. Henry hesitated, then said, "I feel like I've become someone I wouldn't have respected 20 years ago." That broke Margaret's heart, not because he had said something harsh, but because it revealed what he had been carrying in silence. Henry wasn't pushing her away because he stopped loving her. He was pulling back because he no longer felt worthy of being loved. After a minor surgery, his physical strength had declined. He had gained weight. His memory had slipped. And every time he looked in the mirror, he saw someone fading, not someone present. So he withdrew, not to punish Margaret, but to protect himself from feeling like a disappointment. That night, Margaret didn't ask him to explain. She didn't press him to talk. She simply did something she hadn't done in months. She sat next to him on the bed, placed her hand on his, and said, "I love the man you are, even now." Henry didn't cry. He just looked at her with a depth she hadn't seen in a long time. And for the first time in months, they lay close that night, not with fireworks, but with warmth. Over the next weeks, Margaret made small changes. She asked him to help her cook, even if it was just slicing a tomato. She left him little notes, one with a photo of their first apartment, one with a quote he once loved. She played his favorite jazz in the mornings, not for nostalgia, but for rhythm. And slowly, Henry returned. Not dramatically, but with more eye contact, more presence, more life. One day, while folding laundry together, he said, "I thought I had to be the man I used to be close to you, but you reminded me that who I am today is enough." This is what reconnection looks like after 60. It's not about grand gestures, it's about showing up, softly, consistently, without pressure. And when you do, you don't just bring him back, you bring back the us you thought was gone. What keeps couples from reconnecting, and how to break the silence. By the time many couples reach their 60s or 70s, the silence has become familiar, not painful, not hostile, just the new normal. They share meals, talk logistics, watch TV. But emotional closeness, physical affection, eye contact that lingers, gone. And even when both partners feel the distance, they often don't speak it. Why? Because something powerful and quiet stands in the way: fear, habit, and pride. Let's unpack the most common barriers that keep couples from reconnecting after years of emotional drifting. 1. The fear of awkwardness. After so much time apart emotionally, reaching out can feel unnatural. What if he doesn't respond? What if it feels forced? What if I'm the only one who misses us? These fears are valid, but they only grow in silence. And the irony? He's likely wondering the same things. The first step is often the most uncomfortable, but it's also the most powerful. 2. The myth that it's too late. Many couples believe, if we haven't fixed it by now, we never will. But intimacy doesn't age out. It only withers from lack of attention. We've seen couples reconnect after decades of distance just by changing the way they show up for each other. One gentle word, one memory revisited, one hand reached for at the right moment. It's never too late, unless you decide it is. Third role expectations. Many men were raised to believe emotions are weakness. Don't talk about feelings. Just keep moving forward. Many women were taught, be the emotional one. Wait for him to open up. Don't push too hard. These roles can trap both partners in silence when both actually crave the same thing, connection. Breaking free means giving each other permission to speak and permission to fumble through it. 4. Not knowing where to start. Sometimes couples stay silent simply because they don't know what to say. So here's a script, simple and honest. I've been thinking about us lately. I miss feeling close to you. I'd like us to sit together for a few minutes tonight. No pressure, just to be. These aren't demands, they're invitations. And invitations are harder to ignore than ultimatums. 5. Waiting for the other person to move. First, this is perhaps the biggest barrier. I'll reconnect when they do. But someone has to go first. And often, the one who goes first is the one who values the connection most. Not because they're weaker, but because they're braver. Margaret chose to move first. Carol did too. And because of that, their partners returned, not instantly, but sincerely. So if you're waiting for a perfect moment, a perfect phrase, a perfect shift, it may never come. But if you can take one small step, today, you might be surprised how ready your partner is to meet you there. Carol sat beside Joe on the couch just like that first night. But this time, she didn't feel invisible. This time, she felt his hand resting gently over hers. No words, no grand gesture, just warmth, contact, presence. And that meant everything. It wasn't a perfect fix. Joe was still quiet, still slower to speak. But the silence between them had changed. It wasn't empty now. It was holding something new, a soft return to what they used to have. Because when Carol said, "I miss us," and didn't accuse or demand, but simply let the truth sit there, Joe heard her. And over time, he responded. This is how reconnection begins after 60, not with dramatic ultimatums, not with perfectly worded speeches, but with honesty, softness, repetition, a hand on the shoulder, a shared photo, a whispered, "I remember when." These gestures are not small, they are the doorway. Because the truth is, love doesn't disappear. It gets buried under years of responsibility, fatigue, fear, and unspoken emotion. But it can be uncovered at any age. So if you've felt the silence grow between you and your partner, if you've said in your heart, "I miss us," but never out loud, let this be your sign. You are not alone. You are not too late. You are not foolish for wanting connection. And if you're brave enough to speak those words, if you reach out with care instead of criticism, you might be shocked at how ready they are to come back, because most people aren't looking for fireworks. They're just hoping to feel seen, held, and safe again. What about you? Have you ever experienced emotional distance in your relationship? How did you start finding your way back? Share your story in the comments. We listen, and so do others. And if this message touched something inside you, subscribe to Longevity Talks for more heart-centered wisdom on love, aging, and staying connected in every season of life.